The AP and the coaches poll took a kind of a knee jerk as far as BYU is concerned. In the AP, BYU fell in at number 14, and the coaches poll number 15, which is interesting because they have the same record as a bunch of teams in front of them and have a couple of better wins. But just like it's been all year, and maybe that's a good thing because Kalani gets these when they feel like an underdog, they seem to play with more of a chip on their shoulder. So maybe being disrespected a little bit will be good for them down at Arizona State. And they have a chance to go make a big statement against a team in Arizona State that's ranked now this week.
Yeah, 23rd. BYU's 14th. 9-1 are the Cougars, 6-1 in the league. 8-2 are the Sun Devils, 5-2 in the league. It's on ESPN. We'll have more TV details for you in just a moment.
That's right.
17-13, Kansas comes in here and beats BYU. They did what they had to do, and the Cougars just could not get into the end zone. So what we liked, what we didn't like. Here's what we did like. The BYU defense held Kansas to season lows in total offense, rushing yards, scoring, first downs, third down conversions, and total plays. Held Kansas to 17 points. A game you should win if you hold a team to 17 points. Another thing we liked is Cougar Nation. That stadium was cold, but it was full, and it was active, and it was fun. And it was everyone's primed for a last second finish.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? If they win that game, they get to 10-0. That's awesome. Losing that game the way they did revealed some things that they can fix that might help them get to 10-1.
Yep.
And that's imperative.
Yeah, it really is. And hopefully this leads them on another little streak. And let's not understate that defensive effort, because going into that game, having watched the film, my impression of Kansas was this is one of the best offenses BYU is going to face all year. Now that I've had a chance to review the film, that might be the best defensive game BYU's played all year. They were phenomenal. Did they get a few big plays? They do. But teams, I'm sorry, folks, good teams make plays, right? Yeah. But to hold that team to the yardage totals, like season lows in almost every offensive category, that was a phenomenal defensive effort. And you got to remember that one of the touchdowns came after the pooch punt hit in the head from the 3-yard line. So really,
that was the game winner.
Really, I mean, the defense gave it up because it was an offensive play, but really the defense held them to 10 points. Kansas is way better than that offensively. And
they scored 7 on the opening drive.
Mark my words, Colorado will not hold Kansas's offense to 10 points this next Saturday.
That's going to be an interesting game at Arrowhead.
Right. We'll see. Let's not understate how good that was. Equally as excited as I was about the defense watching the film, I was disappointed in the offense, and they moved the ball at times. They just made too many mistakes and didn't finish drives. So disappointed. But like as you said, Dave, everything that I saw offensively is fixable, which is good.
Here's what we didn't like, and I imagine you guys feel the same way. Failure to execute the offense inside the 15-yard line before halftime, an interception. Inside the 15 late in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, turning it over on downs. That just can't happen. It can't happen if you're going to try to stay undefeated, and it certainly can't happen at home.
Yeah, when you get the ball down there at the end of the half, even if you only kick a field goal, that now at the end of the game, you're driving down to kick the game-winning field goal instead of trying to score a touchdown at the end of the game. And then when you get down there and you're managing this game and you're trying to run the clock out and score at the same time, and you have a false start, and now instead of 4th and 6, which is every single play in your playbook's available at 4th and 6. 4th and 11 is a whole different playbook, especially in the red zone, because you kind of need to throw the football probably, right? But there's certain, like that intermediate area is not as open. You can't hit a guy on the run and have him run. You can't go over the top because there is no over the top. It's just like that penalty was as big a penalty as they had in the whole game. And so, yeah, they just misfired there. And hey, let's address this right now because everybody's asked me. I've probably had 30 people today ask me about why do we run option into the boundary? Why do we run option into the boundary? Because on the wide side of the field, BYU gets in a certain formation that forces the defense to take the strong safety and put them to the wide side of the field, and they take their linebackers and they shift them to the wide side of the field. They run it to the boundary purposely because they have leverage and they have head count on that side. They don't have enough heads to block everybody to the wide side of the field. There'll be an unblocked player. So they run it to the boundary by design. Now, people forget that against Utah, they ran the exact same play to the boundary and got a big, huge first down on 4th down with Hinckley Ropati. The difference this time is 3 guys failed on their blocks. It's like they had enough people and the right leverage. Now, I do think Jake could have stepped harder to the defensive end that you don't block to tie him up a little longer. He let the DN slow play it. But Keim has done an unbelievable job of sealing that outside backer. We didn't seal the outside backer. Darius Lassiter, how many times this year have we said, and look at this block downfield by Darius Lassiter. The corner jumped it, and they didn't block the corner. So they didn't block the corner. They didn't block the outside linebacker. The quarterback didn't step to the defensive end as well as he should have. If they block, they have the right numbers and the right leverage, the right angles. If those guys make their blocks, then Hinckley gets the pitch, and he probably goes 7 or 8 yards. And
probably does what he did against Utah.
So it wasn't,
took that pitch and went around the corner for 15 yards. It wasn't
a bad check by Jake. When they got in that formation and they shifted to the strong side of the field and they moved another player to the strong side of the field, Jake goes, I have numbers. We have leverage. We can get a positive yardage play for at least 5 yards. Yeah. But everybody has to block. So it wasn't a horrific call.
It didn't work.
It's not stupid to run it into the boundary. But when you run a play, you have to execute the play. Yeah. And they did not execute. That was the problem most of the night, is the execution.
We also didn't like the poor preparation in practice, which Jake, Chase Roberts, even Tyler Batty talked about our post-game show. There was, when you don't execute, there's a direct reflection into how your week went. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant, a broadcaster, a football player. If you didn't do any prep, then it comes back to bite you in some different ways, like a simple, I missed my block.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about this, and this is why this didn't play. We also didn't like the fact that the weather canceled the drones.
Yeah, that was
so
bad.
That was kind of a bummer, too.
And we talk about that preparation. Remember they had, and I mentioned Jake's a little beat up. Okay, that's fine. Keim, who's been so good at right tackle and just has been in this offense for so long, he's a leader out there. You replace him. So it was imperative that they have an unbelievably focused, effective practice week. And to hear from the players that, we were kind of flat during the week. It wasn't a great week of prep on the offensive side.
It's kind of a bummer.
I mean, defense obviously prepared well, and they had maybe their best game. But it's kind of a bummer, because that's a game that against that team, BYU is a better football team than Kansas when they execute completely. And so here's the good news. I think the offense, everybody's paying attention this week.
Yeah, I think it'll be.
And I think that they recognize that there's a lot on the line this week. It's the biggest game, one of the biggest games in the country this week. And I think preparation will be really good. And I think Kalani can put the chip back on their shoulder and say, nobody respects you. You're an underdog to Arizona State. You dropped 7 spots in the polls. It's time to go make statement number 10 this week for a 10th win. And if he has their focus, I feel really good about what they can do down there.
Wrote a column in the Deseret News today on humble pie. BYU just ate a big slice of it. And now we'll see. Humble pie can sometimes ruin the whole holiday season.
That's right.
But because you want pumpkin and cherry and pecan and whatever others. But we'll see how they bounce back. Here were your 3 keys to beating Kansas. We like to hold you accountable for.
Right.
Number 1, keep Daniels in the pocket. Use the Arizona plan. Daniels had 169 yards passing and only 15 yards rushing.
Phenomenal.
We'll give you a check on that.
We'll give him double check on that. Phenomenal job.
Win the turnover battle. It was 3-1 for Kansas.
Give him a double minus.
Double minus.
And the pooch punt was the killer.
Yeah, that pooch punt. We're going to show that on after further review.
Who do you blame on it, really?
And I don't even know if you can blame anyone.
You can't blame anybody. That's just like one of those plays, but it was so devastating. But they get a double minus on that one for sure.
And then 3, sustained drives, score touchdowns in the red zone. They got in the red zone 4 times, just 2 field goals.
Yeah, and Kansas was perfect in the red zone.
So you don't get a check on that.
Yeah, Kansas gets a check for that, but BYU gets 2 minuses.
Here are the Big 12 clinching scenarios. BYU can clinch a date in the Big 12 championship game with a win on Saturday and Utah defeating Iowa State in Salt Lake on Saturday night.
So that's what you should be rooting for.
Colorado can clinch a date in Arlington with a win over Kansas and wins by BYU and Utah. So for Colorado, it could very well go into the final week of the regular season. But that's what can get the Buffaloes in.
So here's the thing. So if BYU goes and wins, right, against Arizona State, and then Utah does their job against Iowa State, and then Colorado goes and wins at Kansas, the last week of the season doesn't even matter. I mean, it matters for national rankings, but we'll know at the end of Saturday night that BYU and Colorado would be playing each other in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, and that's probably what Fox and ESPN are waiting on for.
They'd like to be able to promote it. Yeah.
November 30th games. Like, is there a big one to show and where to put it?
Right.
Because it could all, if things don't go quite right on Saturday, then the last day of the regular season will be a free for all.
There's all kinds of tie-breaking scenarios and all that you don't even want to get into.
1:30 kickoff ESPN. Game day on BYU TV starts at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time on Saturday. Our crew will be down in Tempe. Ty Detmer is supposed to join us down there. Max Hall is going to join us. The Stars will be out.
All the Stars are coming out.
And then the post-game shows on BYU TV as well. Here's the unis. Royal helmet, white face mask, white jersey, royal pants with the white trim. That's going to be pretty sharp.
Very classic look. It'll look
the
good.
Sun Devils will be out in their maroon and yellow.
Yeah.
How about sunny, high around 78?
I could take some of that right now.
That sounds fantastic.
Can we go do the show? Can we do pre and post down there
I wish we would.
instead of in our studio? Yeah.
Arizona State's favored by 3.5.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. It opened up I think 1 and it went to 3.5. We'll see where that goes. But you know what? Arizona State's playing really well. They went and forced turnovers and won at Kansas State, so they're going home. Why wouldn't they be the favorite?
Well, and Sam Levitt, their quarterback, he seems to be getting better. He's a freshman quarterback. He's very athletic. He's got a big arm. He's a really good player. Early in the season, making some freshman kind of mistakes, but he just seems to be getting better every single game. And so I think if BYU is to win this, and I agree with a bunch of that panel that came on with us, they need to stop Scadaboo from controlling the run game because they need to make it hard on Levitt. They need to make Levitt, a freshman, carry this thing. They need him to throw them to a victory, and then they can pin their ears back and come after him and get in his face. Because as great as he is, he's still a freshman, right? So if Scadaboo can't, if they can be dominant in the run game and then they can just play action pass off of that makes it easy on a young quarterback.
29th meeting, Sun Devils lead 20-8. BYU's won the last 3. They beat them 27-17 here in 2021. That was Tyler Algiers' punch out. We'll show that a million times on game day. The last time in Tempe, BYU beat them 13-10 on a fourth quarter field goal. That was back in 1997.
These were big rivals in the old WAC days before Arizona State left the league. So
before we get to your keys, you mentioned Sam Levitt and Scadaboo. We've talked about them. They're both really good. Levitt's got a connection here. His brother Dallin played at BYU.
Right.
He played at Pleasant Grove High School before moving over to Oregon. Went to Michigan State, then went in the portal, and then went to Arizona State. So, he's been around. He's a journeyman. He's playing really well. And Scadaboo and Jordan Tyson is his big threat. Had a big game against Kansas State. But the BYU defense, this is leading into your keys,
right,
is number 1 in the Big 12 in total defense, passing defense, turnovers gained, passes intercepted, and they're number 2 in scoring defense. That's in the Big 12. This is the same league we were in last year when we weren't near anywhere close to the top.
Exactly.
And now this defense is number 1. Utah, take a step back. BYU's defense is the number 1 total defensive unit in the Big 12.
Did I not predict that in the offseason? In year 2 of Jay Hill?
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. So, and they're playing extremely well.
So all that being said, what are your keys to winning Saturday?
So I think you need to play aggressive and physical on defense. When I watch Arizona State on film, my take is, wow, this is a really physical downhill running football team. Scadaboo is a low to the ground, physical dude. He wants to run downhill. They play single back, old school. They run counter and power. They run a lot of zone with him and let him pick the spot. And he finishes runs with a low pad level and just runs over people. So I think BYU needs to match that aggressive physical style up front. And I think they can. I love BYU's front 7, those front 4 and the backers. And so, as mentioned, when you play physical up front and you don't let Scadaboo run the football, you shut him down. Now you make Levitt carry the team and you make it be a throwing team, one-dimensional. Now you're in a good position to win that game.
All right, number 2.
Finish drives with touchdowns. So when you get in the red zone, you score touchdowns. You don't settle for field goals, especially early in that game. And we talked about how you do that, how you plan for the red zone.
Okay, and 3?
Win the turnover margin battle. And you know what? Let's take it a step further. Don't just win the turnover margin battle. Win the points off of turnovers battle. Because BYU, even though they forced a turnover last week, they had a 3-and-out right after it. So win the points off turnovers battle. So you take care of the football, and when you get the football and take it away from Arizona State, you go get points off of it. You make them pay.
I like what BYU Sports Addict says. We got to play like it's the last minute of the game every time we get in the red zone.
You know what? They need to play the middle, because they've been really good in the middle 8, except for they didn't score in the middle 8 on that at the end of halftime. But let's say that Kansas game was an aberration. Play the whole game like it's the middle 8, because they've been really good in the middle 8 all season long.
I love being in big games. We didn't love losing the other night, but big games are fun to be in, and we're not always in them. But Saturday is a big game with the chance to get to the Big 12 championship.
And the Big 12 championship leads to the college football playoff if you win it. And isn't it nice to be in a league where you win a game or you lose a game? And as Scott pointed out when he was on the show, BYU's had a lot of phenomenal teams that somewhere along the line stumbled and then picked it up and looked at what they did and moved forward and then won games afterwards. Because there's only one undefeated team in BYU history.
Your team.
And that was my team in 1984. I'm not going to take all the credit for it, but I was on that team.
You and the Dolphins.
There's only one, right?
Right.
Only one team went unblemished. But how many great teams have come through here with 1 or 2 losses? And so, they looked at the film, they broke it down, they learned from it, and they just put it behind them. And now it's all Arizona State moving forward. And let's see what they can learn from that game and go and get a win. They get a win this week and get to double-digit wins in the season to 10-1. Are you kidding me?
Think about 2021 when they go to Coastal and get beat, fall 2 yards short of the end zone. They're no longer undefeated. They're not in a conference. It's over.
It ended everything.
It's over. And they end up coming home. They played San Diego State, maybe somebody else after that. We called those 2 games. And then they went to the Boca Raton Bowl and blew out UCF. It kind of didn't matter,
right?
Yeah.
But it still matters now.
Yeah. This one was, that was unfortunate. But now Saturday's game's even bigger.
Even bigger. It makes this week's game even bigger.
So that's the word we're in. By the way,
that's the fun of being in a conference, and that's what you got to do. You got to move forward and
big service project going on with Arizona State and BYU this weekend. The link is on our chat. And get involved. We have a lot of folks that saying they're involved. You can't get there or send stuff. You can get on there and make some donations or whatever. But what Cougar Nation does, whether or not they can get to the site or not, they change the lives of people around a sporting event, and then they move on to the next thing.
Yep.
And you don't have to do it. Most schools don't. But BYU does.
Yeah.
It makes things different.
It's awesome.
And it was great to visit with all the alumni reps who are making that happen in the great state of Arizona. Thank you for watching The Wise Guide.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.